Okay, this is the Chapter 9 Fair Game Review. So what we're going to be doing is reviewing a couple things you've learned before that'll be useful for Chapter 9. So this is right out of your textbook on page 371. If you are plotting points on a coordinate plane, you need to describe the location. So remember that a point on a plane right here is kind of like it describes the directions how to get there. The first coordinate is always your x coordinate, okay, and that's going to tell you moving left and right. So part A, so you have your x, comma, y. So for point A, -3, 2, you will start at the origin, move to the left 3 spaces, because that's in the negative direction, and then up 2 spaces and put the point. The location on the coordinate plane, when we talk about that, is what quadrant is it in. So remember that it kind of goes counterclockwise. In quadrant 1, you have x values that are positive, and y values that are positive. In quadrant 2, you have a negative x and a positive y. Quadrant 3 is a negative x and a negative y. And finally, quadrant 4, positive x, negative y. So when it gets to the point where it says describe the location, you want to say for point A that it would be in quadrant 2. So keep that in mind. There's also a poster in the front of our classroom by the window for the algebra basics and the graphing that talks about y-axis, x-axis, and it has the quadrants labeled. So if you get done with these video notes and you're still confused, you can go up there and take a look at that poster. So for B, you have 4, -2.5. So again, starting at the origin, you'll move 4 places to the right, and then you'll go 2.5 places down and plot the point, which makes it located in quadrant 4. So let's give this a try. Make sure you understand where these are being plotted. So for a +1, +3, I would go to the right 1 place and up 3, and that's the best I could do. And then you would label where it is located, and it is in quadrant 1. Okay? For the number 2, starting at the origin, back 2 and up 4, it's a little bit better. That's quadrant 2, and they're using Roman numerals. For number 3, you go to the right 1 and down 3.5, so it's going to be between the 3 and the 4, somewhere around there. Use pencil. Hopefully yours is sharper than mine, but I can't get the points to show up if I use a fine point. So quadrant 4. And finally, -1 3/4, so it's almost to the 2, and a -2 1/4. Ooh. Well, something like that. Might be a little bit to the left of that. But that is definitely quadrant 3. Okay, again, do a little bit better than I did because of the technology I'm using. This next part is something that's a little bit new for you, and we've written lines in slope-intercept form. Remember that slope-intercept form is in the form of y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and can be calculated using the change in y over change in x. B is your y-intercept, and this is the place where x is equal to 0, meaning that it crosses the y-axis. So everything that we've done leading up to this point, when I've asked you to write the equation of a line between 2 points, I've always given you the y-intercept as one of the points. Well, today you're going to practice a skill where you're not given the y-intercept. You have to calculate it using the point-slope form, right here, of an equation. So here is your point-slope form. So I've written that on your worksheet that you're going to be practicing these skills, and I really do want you to try to do that. If you are struggling to check your work, I have given you the y-intercept. So know that if I give you the y-intercept and you calculate the slope, you can see where the slope and the y-intercept go in the slope-intercept form of an equation, hopefully this isn't a skill that you have forgotten to do. But today, let's be practicing using the point-slope form. You will be using that next year in Algebra 1 quite a bit. All right, so what they have done is they have 2 points. In this case, it's 4, 2 and -1, -8. So taking the -8 minus the 2, that's the change in y. And the -1 minus the 4 is the change in x. -10 divided by -5 is a +2. So your slope is a +2. Pick one of the points. They pick the first one. Sometimes I pick the second one, and it doesn't really matter because the line goes through both points. So the math will work either way. So in the point-slope form, I get why they picked the first point, because that's y1, x1. Again, we've talked about the interchangeability as long as you know what you're doing. So they will take y minus y1. So take y minus, and then y1 in this case is the 2. And then that is equal to the slope, which we calculated to be 2, times x minus x1, which is 4. Distribute the slope. So using the distributive property, you'll get 2 times x and 2 times a -4. So your equation is now y minus 2 is equal to 2x minus 8. You're solving for y. So we simply add 2 to both sides, making sure that you're adding it to the like terms, and it's now in slope-intercept form. So let's give this a try. Okay, so a couple things. Slope-intercept form, y is equal to mx plus b. And the slope form of an equation, y minus y1 is equal to slope times x minus x1. And we can use this information. So if we're going to write an equation of the line passing through the given points, we first need to calculate the slope of each point. So 8 minus 4 over 3 minus the -1. So 8 minus 4 is equal to 4. 3 minus a negative is like 3 plus 1, or 4. So in this case, our slope is equal to 1. Now if we grab the very first point and call that x1, y1, we have y minus y1 is equal to 4. Our slope times x minus, and our x1 is -1. Okay, let's put this into a little better shape. Y minus 4 is equal to 1 times the quantity x plus 1. Now, when we distribute a +1, we have y minus 4 is equal to x plus 1. So we'll add 4 to both sides, and then y would be equal to x plus 5 in slope-intercept form. Okay? Let's try the next one. All right, I'll change colors here so that it's a little easier to see. So calculating the slope of the second one, we'll have -2 minus the -1 over -8 minus 0. -2, so this becomes, these two become a plus 1, is going to be a -1, and that doesn't look like a 0 at all. -8 minus 0 will become a -8. Remember, a negative divided by a negative makes a slope of a +1 over 8. Okay, now in this case, see, maybe this is why I did it. I went ahead and grabbed this point because I know that that x is that -8 right there, and I have a fraction. So if I do y minus, and in this case I will use the -2, y minus the -2 will be equal to my +1/8 x minus my -8. Now let's take care of some of these double negatives here. So minus a -2 is y plus 2. I have 1 over 8 x plus 8, and this is in parentheses, so I still have to distribute. Okay? So y plus 2 is equal to 1 over 8 x. When I take 1/8 of 8, or 1/8 times 8, I get 1. Okay? So now I need to get y by itself. I'll subtract 2 from both sides, and I'll get y is equal to 1 over 8 x. 1 plus a -2 is a -1, and there's my slope-intercept form. And finally, calculating the slope, -9 minus 8 over 3 minus 6. -9 minus 8 is a -17. 3 minus 6 is a -3. So my slope is then a positive 17 over 3. Okay? So since I have a 3 in a denominator and I know I'm going to be distributing with the x, I'll go ahead and use my second point again. So y minus the -9 is equal to 17 over 3 times x minus 3. And here I can distribute, and I'll go ahead and put this in shape. Minus a negative is plus. So 17 over 3x, and 17 over 3 times 3, the 3's cancel, so I get minus 17. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. And then y would be equal to 17 over 3x minus the 26. Okay, so go ahead and give that a try on your worksheet. There are 11 problems to do, and show all work.